Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, a new neighbor moved in next to me and claimed that my driveway belonged to him. He ended up starting construction on my property and dug a massive hole in my driveway. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the video. And the first one starts like this. I've never had any troubles with my neighborhood from the day I first moved in with my family up until 5 years later when the old lady who lived next door sadly passed away. It took a while given how old the house was, but eventually someone bought it and moved in. The man who moved in looked to be around the same age as me and did not seem to bring many belongings with him. When I went over after a couple of weeks, giving him enough time to settle in, he greeted me with what I can only describe as the absolute opposite of friendliness. "Welcome to the neighborhood," I said in an attempt to cheer up his sour face. For someone who had just moved into a new home, he certainly didn't look the most thrilled. "Thanks," he replied grudgingly, making no attempt to further the conversation and staring at me like I was some out-of-space life form. "Okay, well, if you ever need anything," I began before getting the door shut in my face. After that cheery interaction, I went back home to carry on doing some tasks around the house. Not 5 minutes later did I hear the sound of a loud engine starting up outside. Glancing out the window, I spotted my new cheery neighbor revving off in his big van with "construction handyman" plastered on the side. I guess that explained his work. I watched for a moment as he sped off, leaving horrible dirt marks in his wake, which I knew he would not be planning to sort out. He came back a couple hours later, and on the way to his driveway, he mounted the side of mine and left even more horrible marks. These ones looked to be wet concrete that I knew the rain would not wash away. Angrily and already annoyed at my new neighbor, I stormed out of my house and straight over to his, banging on the door with my fist. "Sir, can you please refrain from driving over my driveway next time you come home?" I spoke as calmly as possible once he had opened the door. He smirked at me in a way which made my blood boil and replied, "Your driveway?" before once more shutting the door in my face. I stood there for a few seconds before realizing that I probably looked stupid and stormed back over to my house, grabbing some cleaning supplies and coming back out to clean up the concrete before it set. When my husband came home later, I barely gave him a second to walk in the door before telling him all about our lovely new neighbor and what a great first impression he made. He assured me that the next time there was an issue, he would go over and deal with it, which worked at calming me down for the remainder of the evening. My calm did not last long, however, as in the middle of the night, I heard the sound of the van engine and dreaded seeing what damage it had done. At the time, I decided to wait until morning to see the state of my driveway, as I knew my temper was already hanging by a thread and I didn't want to start an argument so late at night. Once morning arrived, I had almost forgotten about what I had heard last night, and only once I was making my morning coffee and saw what was outside did I remember. There was no concrete marks or dirt on the driveway, that much was a relief. However, what I failed to look past was the fact that my neighbor had decided that my driveway was now his new parking spot. My husband came up beside me and shared an equally sour expression. Not bothering to change out of my robe or finish my coffee, I stormed out of the house once more with my husband in tow. He knocked on my neighbor's door with 3 loud thuds, and together we waited for the door to be opened. "What?" was all we got from the man once the door had opened. Did he really have no clue as to what we were here for? "Why have you parked your van on our driveway? I understand that you and my wife might not have gotten off on the right foot, but this is just childish." My husband responded calmly. "It's not your driveway," was all we got back from the man. "What do you mean it's not our driveway?" "Of course it is, we have lived here for years." My husband was beginning to lose the calm mask he put up. "My house description says it comes with a driveway, and the patch of land outside my house is clearly not what anyone would consider a driveway, so I probably own the land outside of yours." The man shrugged as if what he was saying was completely understandable. "First of all, you will have seen the driveway before you bought the house, I'm sure, so you must have known the one you were getting was small. Secondly, why on earth would your driveway be in front of another house?" I replied, cutting off my husband just before he started to speak. "I've had enough of this. I bought that land," the man snarked, slamming the door in our faces, something he clearly had a habit for. Me and my husband shared an angry glance before knocking on once more, not finished with our conversation. After a while of no answer, we decided to head home and hope for the best. Over the course of the next week, every single day the man would park his van in our driveway, most of the time blocking the garage, which meant we struggled to get out in our own cars for the day. On the 5th day of us arguing with the neighbor, we decided we had enough and called a towing company to tow away his van. After showing proof that the van was parked on private property, it was towed away and put in an impound garage downtown. Our neighbor came storming over the second he saw his van was gone. "What have you done?" he fumed. A vein was pulsing on his head. "Well, we got rid of something that was on our property," I replied with a shrug, as if I didn't know what he was on about. "It's not your property, that's my driveway. Now where's my van?" The man at this point was stood not even a foot away from me. "Oh yes, your van, sorry, I forgot about that," I replied with a smile, handing him the letter the towing company had given me, which detailed where the van was and how much it would cost to get it out. "You're going to pay for this," the man seethed before walking away, crumpling the paper in his hand. I thought nothing of it, assuming it was nothing more than an empty threat, and went inside with a satisfied grin on my face. 2 days later, me, my husband and our daughter drove away from our home to go on a holiday, which we had been planning for a while. The trip was lovely, nothing but a week of expensive meals and beachy afternoons. However, on the way back home, I started to get this horrible gut feeling that something was wrong. My suspicions were confirmed when I came home to see that we could not even get into our driveway with the mess that was made. Right in the middle of the driveway was a giant gaping hole with a cone that had "construction handyman" written on it. "How do you like my renovations?" a voice said from behind us once we got out of the car, which we had to park in the street. "Why have you done this?" I all but yelled at the man after giving my daughter the keys and telling her to go inside. I walked over to the hole, which seemed even bigger closer up. "To prove that this driveway is mine," he responded with a shrug. "That's it, I'm calling the police," I stated, but before I could pull the phone out of my pocket, the man grabbed my wrist and shoved me to the floor. Not thinking, I jumped to my feet and punched him square in the nose, successfully knocking him unconscious. My husband was on the phone to the police straight away, and they were here in a matter of minutes. By the time they arrived, my neighbor had woken up slightly and was trying to lie his way out of the situation. He was telling the police that we were framing him for something he did not do and that I assaulted him out of nowhere. The whole time I could not help but smirk as I waited for him to finish his speech. "Let's check the camera," I stated, relishing as his face fell. We have a doorbell with a camera on our front door, which perfectly captured the man digging the hole and then provoking an attack. With more than enough evidence, I was able to press charges of $200,000, which covered the damages tenfold. He ended up behind bars for a long time and nobody missed him. And here, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, have you ever had such serious conflicts with your neighbors? If you have a good story to tell, please feel free to let us know in the comments or on r/Ripe Stories on Reddit. Anyway, the next one is titled, "I Never Worked Here." At the time, I was working Grave and Swing as a casino player's host in Reno, NV. For those who don't know what this job is, we take care of the high rollers, make sure they get comps, dining and hotel reservations, get invites to tournaments, limo rides, you name it. And well, I wore a nice black blazer with a name tag, slacks, comfortable but professional shoes, hair and makeup done. The days I worked Swing, I was off at 3 AM, but after waiting for the bus and the ride home, I would make it to my place at about 5 AM. Directly across the street from my home was a Walgreens. I stopped in a lot of mornings to grab a protein shake, pick up prescriptions, etc. But on Wednesday mornings they put out a lot of clearance items. You could snack small appliances dirt cheap. So I was always there on Wednesdays, stocking up on Christmas and birthday presents, etc. The employees and manager knew me by sight and some by name. I was usually a zombie after work, I think, like most people. And this Wednesday was no different. I was looking over the latest selection, trying to decide if I needed a new coffee maker or just wanted one because it was clearanced for like $5. A woman was next to me speaking Tagalog into her phone. I don't speak it, but Reno has a pretty large Filipino community, so I could at least recognize it. Her language is not important to the story though, it just struck me how odd the little things we remember are. She finished her conversation and looked at me. "Can I get a discount on this?" I don't remember what this was, some small appliance. "The box is smashed up." "No idea," I told her, but I would ask to plug it in to test it before I bought it if the box is damaged. I have no idea if anyone can actually do that, but it seemed reasonable to me. "Why would you sell something that doesn't work?" she demanded. I had no idea at this point that she thought I worked there. I thought she was making conversation. In my defense, I was half asleep and just wanted a good deal on a damn stick blender. "Oh," I told her, "I absolutely wouldn't sell it, but I'm not in the business of selling things anyway." Oh, so you're too good and important to sell things. That's just for the low employees, huh? I finally looked at her. Until then, I was pretty focused on staying away. I could see she was getting angry. It dawned on me that I still had my name tag on. I slipped it off. They are the kinds with magnets, not pins, and stuck it in my pocket. Oh, sorry, I forgot to take this off. I started to say I don't work here, but she was having none of that. Oh, you think you're too good to help me? Just because I'm a Filipina? She may have said Filipino. I confess I don't know which is correct and only going off memory. My money is good, you! She said something in Tagalog that didn't sound flattering. You think you can trick me taking off your name tag? I just sighed. I don't want your money. I don't work here. I'm shopping. Please leave me alone. She ignored everything I just said except for, oh, you won't be getting my money because you need to give me this free for not helping me. Ma'am, I tried to reason with her. I cannot give you that. I really don't work here. If you take it without paying, that is stealing. Oh, now you think I'm poor and a thief? What the hell? Where did poor come from? I want to talk to the manager of the whole store. Lady, I turned back to the shelf. I wish you would effing talk to anyone but me. I did not swear because I was angry, I just have a potty mouth. She stomped off her heels, making little tick 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 sounds on the linoleum. I decided I did need another coffee maker and that stick blender. As I was putting both in my cart, I hear tick tick tick. Great, she is back, but she is not alone. Tom, the store manager, was with her. There she is! The woman shrieked. She called me a poor thief and she sweared at me. I want you to fire her and make her poor. Weird obsession with poverty. Tom looked at me confused. What is happening? I grinned and held up my coffee maker. Shopping! Tom was even more confused. But why are you insulting her and swearing? She thinks I work here and wanted me to let her steal an appliance. Okay, I know, a bit of an exaggeration, but she started it. This was the moment that her medication stopped working. In a very loud mix of English and Tagalog, she shrieked out our entire interaction. Surprisingly, she told it correctly too, except that I didn't put my name tag away to trick her. Tom was done at this point. He just looked at me and said, "You're fired." The woman grinned maliciously at me, grabbed her smashed up box and stormed off with Tom as I shrugged and made my way over to the allergy medication. Or some other area of the store. I don't 100% remember, but I have terrible allergies, so that seems likely. At the register, Tom asked me what really happened. I told him everything, including how I told her that I wished she would effing talk to anyone but me. Tom laughed and told me I was still fired. Yay! I grinned. Do I get a severance package? Tom laughed even harder. To be fair, you did swear at her, plus you don't actually work here, so no severance package. That's it. I shopped there for many years before I moved. I never saw her again, so I'm sure she went on content with me getting fired and making me poor. And yeah, ripe stars, that is honestly such a good way to solve the situation. Everyone is happy. Karen with the lies she had been told. And OP that he finally got rid of Karen. Anyway, the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. My older brother was married briefly and it didn't work out. He recently remarried. She is 22, he is 33. She is very pretty, but very young, and she comes off as younger than she is in her attitude. She also doesn't seem unintelligent per se, but she has a high school education and has never worked a day in her life and doesn't seem that interested in personal growth and education. She and my brother's explicit plan is to start having kids as soon as possible, ideally 3 to 4. She is right now a stay-at-home wife and will be a stay-at-home mom. They are already trying to get pregnant. My brother and I both inherited a nest egg when our dad passed away a decade ago, and our mom is well off too, and he makes large salary personally. He has several properties and a full-time housekeeper. I don't have a problem with her or with him, though I do think the maturity levels seem like it would be an issue. I am only 26 and due to this age difference have always had trouble relating to my brother as an equal. He can be patronizing, etc. At best, 22 years old is equally mature to me, but realistically a bit less mature since she is 4 years younger. So if my brother and I cannot always relate as equals, it's hard to imagine her and him relating as equals. But like I said, she's not far from my age, so to me, she is more of a peer and I don't dislike her, she is fun. And I'm not working right now either because, like I said, I have money from my parents and a small business on the side. I do recognize it's a privilege to not have to work right now, so we've been hanging out sometimes during the weekdays, like grabbing coffee or going to the gym. I was at their house after going to the gym with her and my brother was there. While she was grabbing something from another room, my brother took a shot at me for being unemployed and being able to just go to the gym for hours in the middle of the workday. I said we are both going to the gym in the middle of a weekday, your wife is unemployed too. He said that's different, and I said don't take shots at me for not working if you have a trophy wife doing the same. He got really offended and yelled at me, but in the process of him being offended, his wife heard what I said, or maybe she overheard my comment, I'm not sure. She was upset too, but am I wrong for calling a spade a spade? And here, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this one in the comments. I'm very curious about what you have to say. Comment number 1 said, everyone sucks here except maybe her. It sounds like you're trying to be friendly with her and then just insulting her. You like her enough to hang out with her, so don't be crummy to her. Your brother deserved a clapback, but not one at her expense. Comment number 2, everyone sucks here. Your brother was wrong to say what he did, but you were also out of line when you lashed out at his wife in the same manner that he lashed out at you. A stay-at-home wife is not necessarily the same as a trophy wife. If you had simply left it at unemployed, I would not be so critical of you, and I would agree that you were calling a spade a spade. You escalated up to insults by calling her a trophy wife though.
This one is another petty revenge story, and it is an absolute banger. A few years ago, I was down on my luck and decided to work for a nationwide pizza chain. I had worked there at various locations and in every position, off and on since I was a teenager. At this point, I was 30, so I figured my 15 years of experience should count for something. After a few months of working, I asked how I could move up to manager. Seeing as how I was just, if not more, knowledgeable than the current managers, I thought I would be a shoo-in. I was told by the regional manager that once I got a vehicle of my own, he would promote me. I found a place that would take a small down payment and lease me a car with an outrageous interest rate. I was desperate to get on my feet, and as long as the job was legit, I would struggle all I had to in order to eventually make it up the ladder. I became a manager and immediately felt like a fool. Apparently managers only get a $1 raise and are now expected to put up with way more crap than that $1 afforded. We had to clean the entire store on closing shift, sometimes be there until 4 AM, etc. I was bamboozled, but it was fine. I was on a mission to escape the street life I grew up in, as I refused to ever sell drugs again. Anyway, about a year into my manager position comes our busiest day of the year. That's right, Super Bowl Sunday. All managers were scheduled to come in at 9 AM in order to prep. I arrived promptly and begging the prep tasks. Being on time is something I pride myself in, but I know my coworkers are often late, so I assumed they were just a few minutes behind. Unfortunately, the next manager did not come in until 10 AM and was clearly hungover to the point that he was no help at all. Each subsequent manager came in 1 hour after another until all 4 of us were finally there. At this point I was a little upset and exhausted, but whatever, I'm a team player. So we just did our jobs and kept it moving. The entire day was busy with little to no break time. So if you ever worked pizza on a Super Bowl Sunday, you can imagine the crap show I'm describing. Phones ringing off the hook, ovens packed to the brim, carry out lobby full. My coworkers and I were like a well-oiled machine. We knew how to work with each other very well. No mistakes, no late orders, busy as hell, but we got this. Then enters the regional manager, Jeff. Jeff and I knew each other since we were teens, as we had both started with the company around the same time. He has not worked in a busy store in years. His primary role is to check in at various stores and ensure that they had what they needed. But of course, he wanted to jump in and assist us. Shake my head. Jeff immediately begins dropping food on the floor, packing orders in wrong boxes, routing deliveries improperly, and just about anything else he could do wrong. It was annoying, but we could not say anything. Jeff would blame us rather than admit that he was screwing up. At some point, I decided I could take a few puffs from my cigarette at the back of the store. After all, I had now been here 12 hours with no break. A cigarette would take the same time as if I went to take a dump, so why not? I literally took 2 puffs and threw my cigarette out because I heard the phone ring and wanted to help. When I turned around, Jeff was staring at me like I just screwed his wife or something. Before I could say anything, he said, "Oh yeah? Get the F out of here, we don't need you." Mind you, this was 2 hours before the end of my shift. I was the only person here on time. 12 hours with no break and made no mistakes at all. On top of that, I was scheduled to open the store the next morning. I simply replied, "Sure Jeff, no worries." I went home and planned my revenge. When I came in the next morning, I put my store key on the manager desk with a handwritten note. I am no longer needed here. I quit. I took a picture on my phone and sent it to my coworkers who I knew would still be sleeping. No one knew until a few hours after the store was supposed to be open, and they lost hundreds of dollars. I quickly found a better job with more pay and less responsibility. Today I make triple what I made them. Apparently though, he still brings me up years later claiming that my mummy must be taking care of me. And the next one is titled, Trespass on my property? Bad idea. My parents purchased 6 acres of farmland back in the early 70s. They had built a house at the front of the lot and had started to plan construction of a small barn further back when fall came. One day my mother comes running into the house yelling about a bunch of crazy people riding snowmobiles and carrying guns through the backyard, right up next to the house near where a toddler, me, was playing. Dad comes out and the hunters insist that they've always come this way and what's the big deal. Dad explains that this is no longer fallow farmland, and that they need to find a different route. They say, "No way, see you tomorrow," and drive off. This repeats for several days. My dad, who does not suffer fools lightly, proceeds to dig out a deep, narrow trench across a good part of the edge of the property with the backhoe. He then hauls every bit of the summer-ripened manure pile from his 4 dogs from the foot of the property to fill the trench. Dead leaves and a decent dusting of snow camouflage the hazard. The next morning the snowmobilers come roaring over the property line and slam headfirst into the trench, leaving their snowmobiles vertical, well and truly stuck. Plus, of course, everyone and everything is covered in rotting dog poo. My dad stood by watching, coffee and his own trusty rifle in hand, while filthy, smelly snowmobiles were winched out of the trench by filthy, smelly snowmobilers. Unsurprisingly, the hunters did find a different way to their hunting grounds after that.
And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.